Hello and welcome to Diecast Diaries. I'm Dan. Now back before Christmas I did a video featuring a couple of Siku airport crash tenders, at the end of which I mentioned that my original intention had been to include all my models of similar vehicles in that same video, amongst which was the Corgi Chubb Pathfinder, but then I subsequently decided that that deserved a video all on its own. So here it is. So this was a Corgi major model released by them in 1974 and in production until 1980. And whilst it might not be the longest model that Corgi had ever produced, that accolade probably going to several articulated trucks, it's got to be up there with the heaviest. This is one hefty piece of diecast. All of the red bodywork that you see there is metal. And as you can see, it's also a pretty big model. According to my Great Book of Corgi, it was produced in 1:48 scale. And during its production run, just over 200,000 of them were sold. So clearly a very popular model, and it's not really difficult to see why. Very eye-catching in the red colour scheme. Fire engines are always popular. As I mentioned, it's a big model. But also, if we have a look at the box, admittedly it is a slightly battered box and missing its innards, but it does mention two very important working features: an electronic siren and an operating water pump. Just show you the rest of the box, just give you details about how to use them. Also some nice artwork on the box, so it did show you that Corgi, when they wanted to, they could do artwork as well as Matchbox could. That's obviously what I've also used for my backdrop. But yeah, a couple of working features. So the electronic siren, the 9-volt battery goes into the compartment just under here. Now unfortunately, I did have a go with this just before I did the video, put a brand new 9-volt battery in there, and I did get it to emit a sound, but it was just one long continuous tone, which was quite irritating, I've got to be honest. For some reason, it wouldn't do the siren, so clearly there's something slightly amiss with the electrics in there. I decided to leave the battery out. I thought you could probably do without hearing the long continuous tone. So yeah, unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be working. But I also had a go with the water pump. Now, normally, at the back, it should have this little plastic shutter, which normally would cover up where the hose attaches, but I couldn't get this to move. It just wouldn't. It's clearly supposed to kind of roll up out of the way, kind of inside just behind here, but I just couldn't get it to budge at all. Luckily, the model is screwed together, not riveted, so I was able very quickly to take it apart, and that's when I saw that this piece has quite a large crack in it. And whilst this plastic is flexible, I really didn't want to force it too much. I thought there was far too much chance. Bearing in mind this is plastic that's probably getting on for 50 years old, I thought there was a good chance that that could just break. So I thought, I can't do a video and not show the working water pump feature. So I thought, for the purposes of the video, I'll leave that out. I'll refit it again afterwards, so I can show that how the pump works. But yeah, that would normally be over there and should, as I say, move up and down. So you can see that's where the rubber hose attaches. You've got some moulded in gauges, so it looks like obviously the real thing. And in true Blue Peter spirit, here's one I prepared earlier. So this is the bulb that comes with it, with the section of hose, and yeah, it's already filled with water. So what you do is connect the hose to the back here, and it just slots straight on like that. Then you lift up the monitor to wherever you want to and give it a squeeze, and there we go. And that's got a range of, I would say, a good couple of meters there. So that's a pretty cool working feature, assuming Mum didn't mind you getting the floor wet when you were playing with it. So I'll just quickly, for the purpose of the video, just get that unplugged so we can have a better look at the model. And what I will do is, quick bit of housekeeping, let's get that mopped up. So yeah, big heavy model. As I say, all this red bodywork here is metal. Plastic bits, you've got the sort of checkerboard bit, or checker plate bit on the top bar, that's all plastic. The interior, obviously. The battery cover, and as I mentioned, the bits at the back. But yeah, all the rest is metal. So yeah, really big, heavy model. Although this version was withdrawn in 1980, another version was released in 1981 and stayed in production until 1983. And that one was a cheaper one that didn't have the electrics, but did still have the working water pump feature. But yeah, really sort of cool feature that. And all the monitor, again, that's all metal as well. It normally clips into place for, I suppose, when it's in travelling mode under there. and you just unclip it, and it's got like, it kind of rotates side to side like that. So yeah, a model with an awful lot of play value, and pleasingly, like both the Siku ones, it's a real vehicle. So as I say, it's called the Chubb Pathfinder. Chubb being a company who usually were more associated with security systems and locks and things like that, but they had taken over a company called Pyrene, who made a lot of different firefighting equipment. And the vehicle was produced in conjunction with Reynolds Boughton, who were a manufacturer of, sort of all-terrain chassis. And it actually won Chubb the Design Council Engineering Award in 1974 for its advanced design. And you can imagine, I think the vehicle itself actually dates originally from 1972. And for that year, you can see it must have been a really modern looking vehicle. So similar to the Siku Fawn airport crash tender that I did in my previous video, the Pathfinder was produced as a response to the increasing size in passenger jets, things like the Boeing 747. Features of the vehicle are it's got a top speed of 60 miles an hour, which is pretty impressive when you consider that all up it weighs 37 tonnes. It can carry 13,000 litres of water and 1,200 litres of foam. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any dates as to when production of the vehicle ended, or indeed how many of them are made, but it must have been a pretty successful vehicle, as I've found photographs of these in service all over the world, not just in the UK. Including in the US, which was quite a surprise. Obviously, they've got a pretty big fire engine industry, and I think it's rare to see a foreign-produced vehicle in service over there. But yeah, there were several photographs of these in service at various American airports. Not found any photographs of these in military service. I think it was just one that was used at civilian airports. But yeah, clearly a very successful vehicle. Whether any are still in service, I doubt it. As I've kind of mentioned, it's a vehicle that's getting on for 50 years old. There are a couple of these at the Yorkshire Air Museum at Elvington, but I think they probably count more as display items rather than actually in service in their original role. One feature of the vehicle is it actually has, as Corgi have done here, it's got a central driving position, which is obviously good to give the driver as much visibility as possible, which you can need when you're driving a vehicle this big. One thing about this is I've not found any that do have like blue flashing lights or anything like that. Obviously, with it having, well, supposedly a working siren, it would have been nice to have it with working lights as well. But yeah, clearly, obviously, this doesn't have any. Maybe it was a feature of the vehicle; it just didn't have lights. But it's kind of surprising for a fire engine. But yeah, as I say, a successful vehicle. Chubb did go on to produce a couple of other airport crash tenders. I think the follow-up to this was called the Protector. Well, that's Corgi's version of the Chubb Pathfinder. As I say, there was a second version of that was done without the electrics that went out of production in 1983. But in 1982, in the Corgi Juniors line, they also introduced this. So I'll just swing the monitor around so it's pointing forward. So this is obviously a much smaller version. But I have to say, it's quite nicely done. The proportions look pretty good. Obviously, it's got your standard Corgi whiz wheels. But apart from that, it's pretty nice. All the bodywork's metal. Obviously, the chassis is plastic, and the monitor's plastic, and the little bits on top. But other than that, it's not bad. It does suffer, of course, with the real thing being such a big vehicle. Obviously, to do it in the Corgi Juniors range, scale-wise, it's pretty tiny. But I think overall it's quite a nice little model, and it sort of goes together with it sort of quite nicely. There are a few different versions of this that I've seen pictures of. So there's this one that has the chrome monitor. There's also one that has a white plastic one, and there's also a yellow plastic one. But the markings on the side are all the same. It's still got the number 8 on it. There were apparently also a couple of export versions, and I think those might have been done in yellow. There was one with German writing on the side, and I think also one with Arabic writing. I imagine those are sort of pretty difficult to pick up. In terms of the big one, the follow-up version, the sort of cheaper version without the electrics, it was still red, but it had ever so slightly different stickers on the side. There was a couple of proposals to do a yellow version and also one with Bristol Airport on the side. I think this was towards the end of like when Corgi was struggling, sort of around 1983. So those never went ahead. I believe that only 6 versions of the yellow version were made. So if one of those ever crops up at an auction or something like that, clearly it's going to go for a lot of money. But yeah, really, that's your kind of main version of it. It's pretty easy to find. It's certainly not a rare model. I'm not sure whether the version without the electrics is rarer, as that was made for a shorter time. Clearly this one would have been more popular. But yeah, it's a pretty easy one to pick up. You can get it on eBay quite easily. Mine actually came off eBay back in the early 2000s, bizarrely from Texas of all places. I've got this and another Corgi fire engine in the boxes. Yeah, from Texas, back when postage wasn't too bad to get things from the States, especially considering the weight of them. Unfortunately, I can't remember what I paid for them off eBay, but it can't have been a lot. Unfortunately, when they arrived at the sorting office, I then got stung with a £10 custom charge on top. So they didn't work out to be quite as cheap as I was obviously originally hoped. Why I got caught with that, I don't know. Whether my parcel had just been picked at random, or whether it was due to the weight of it. It kind of came in for about a bit of closer scrutiny or something. I'm really not sure, but yeah. But as I say, you don't think you have to get them from the States. As I say, they do crop up quite easily on eBay should you want to find them. Price wise, don't think they're too bad. As I say, unfortunately, I can't remember what I paid for this. Of course, condition is a big factor. If you want one in a box, that's clearly going to be more expensive. But it's a pretty robust model, so an unboxed one isn't going to be in terrible condition apart from the paintwork. The attachment for the pump is obviously usually hidden behind that sort of shutter, so that's sort of fairly well protected. The monitor, as I mentioned, is metal, so that's not too bad. You've got obviously big areas of sort of plastic here for the windscreen and that, which I suppose could get cracked. But yeah, other than that, I would say it's a pretty robust model, so you've got a pretty good chance of finding it in good condition. So, but yeah, so that's the Corgi Chubb Pathfinder and its Corgi Juniors counterpart. So I'll leave it there for now. Please do like, share, subscribe and comment, and I'll see you all very soon. Bye.